Hello and welcome. There's lots we could talk about. There's so much happening right now that I'm tempted to comment on all of it. Instead, I'll probably get round to some of those things that I suspect you and I are both interested in the not too distant future. For the moment, however, something which is marching along, often forgotten about, partly because it's becoming so prevalent, is the introduction of AI. And whilst we're distracted over there, AI is being implemented over here, there, and everywhere. And I wanted to specifically draw your attention to not simply artificial intelligence, but artificial general intelligence and artificial super intelligence. Because in those two domains, if I could call them that, I believe lies a very, very, very treacherous road for the human race to navigate safely. To begin then, what I thought we would do is look at a definition or two. This is from the ubiquitous Wikipedia, and you see here that it says, artificial general intelligence, sometimes called human level, is a type of AI that would match or surpass human capabilities across virtually all cognitive tasks. And for me, the differentiator is across all or many tasks, this general intelligence that can be shifted from one focus to another, a focus point to another. Some researchers argue that state-of-the-art large language models already exhibit early signs. Yeah, I think that's a sort of AI equivalent of anthropomorphization. I don't really think that's what we're seeing. But you also get the sense that it's not far away. So, AGI is conceptually distinct from artificial superintelligence, which we'll come on to, which would outperform the best human abilities across every domain by a wide margin. We're not there yet, as in it hasn't appeared yet, but we're still talking about AGI specifically for the moment, which is considered one of the definitions of strong AI. Okay, some ways I might consider it to be worrying AI. Anyway, unlike artificial narrow intelligence, whose competence is confined to well-defined tasks, an AGI system can generalize knowledge, transfer skills between domains, and solve novel problems, issues, etc. So AGI is distinct from normal AI in the sense that it is much more human-like, because you can get someone who, let's say, is an engineer and they work on engineering projects, but maybe they're faced with something mathematical, arithmetical. They could probably transfer those skills quite readily, but also they might be able to look at a legal document and, even if not trained legally, could work out that, hold on a second, those clauses are punitive. They could also look at an exercise regime for people and say, I think there's too many repetitions. So we can apply sometimes what's called common sense. We can apply general rules of knowledge, but we can also extrapolate from what we know already and make those leaps that could be considered like an insight. We suddenly think, we can solve the problem this way. To build this bridge, I can use the principles from my work as a landscape gardener. Maybe that's too close to make exactly the point that I'm making, but hopefully you get the point, which is that an LLM, a large language model, you've probably found this if you've interacted with them. If they're asked to do certain things, they flounder, they don't know, they can't really talk to a particular issue. But certainly their scope and capabilities getting wider and wider. But as I say, AGI, so that other name, artificial human intelligence, which I think is sadly quite accurate, is getting closer. What then? So that was Wikipedia. So from this article from Live Science, what would ASI, superintelligence, mean for humanity? The implications of a technology like ASI would be enormous. prompting scientists and philosophers to dedicate considerable time to mapping out the promise and potential pitfalls for humanity. And there are pitfalls, potentially. On the positive side, a machine with almost unlimited capacity for intelligence, it's a scary sentence, isn't it, somehow? Almost unlimited capacity could solve some of the world's most pressing challenges, said Daniel Hume, CEO of the AI companies, and I'll probably mangle the names, but Satalia and Conceum, I'm guessing. Anyway, in particular, super intelligent machines could remove the friction from the creation and dissemination of food, education, healthcare, energy, transport, so much that we can bring the cost of those goods down to zero, he told Live Science. And maybe, even if these super intelligent things, machines, could do that, would it really bring things down to zero? And I'll come back to that point shortly. So, the possibility of a super intelligence we have no control over has prompted fears that AI could present an existential risk to our species. I think it could, absolutely. This has become a popular trope in science fiction, with movies like Terminator or The Matrix portraying malevolent machines hell-bent on humanity's destruction. Oh, maybe they were sent from the future, those movies, implanted as movies and ideas so that we'd pay attention to them. Or maybe we're in this construct that has been created by some super intelligent AI, and it spends its leisure time just looking at the human race again, making the same mistake once more, one more time. They build these things before they have the checks and balances in place. But let's not be totally bleak. Now, Bostrom, this refers to Nick Bostrom, who's a philosopher, and he came up with the idea that, he wasn't the only one, but says essentially that there's a much stronger probability that we are living in a simulation than not. And the idea being that if we have all these galaxies out there and all these potential worlds a little bit like ours, if it's infinite, then there would be similar things that would evolve, there would be similar machines built. And so over time, over such a long period of time, the chances of somebody building a simulation that we could exist within and we wouldn't know it was a simulation are higher than not. Again, I'm probably mangling his more elegant words. And is it a simulation? Well, again, I'm not a politician, so I'll give you a straight answer. In some ways, I believe it is. It is some sort of construct, and I believe there's intelligent design behind it. Doesn't mean to say it's a machine. That could be something which I could loosely call spiritual, which would tend to be my guess and hope, I have to say. But can I rule out a direct, mechanoid constructed simulation? No, I can't. But certainly there's design behind it, that's for sure. So anyway, so Nick Bostrom fleshed out this idea with a thought experiment, and this by the way, what I was saying earlier is paraphrasing what Nick talked about before. This is talking about the threat of this super intelligence or AI in the article earlier on. But as usual, I don't go over every part of the article to encourage you to read it, because people put a lot of work into these things, or they can do. So, super capable AI is set the seemingly innocuous task of producing as many paper clips as possible. So it sounds a bit daft, okay, fine. If unaligned with human values, it may decide to eliminate all humans. In other words, if humans say, we don't want you to do that, what are you doing? Don't do that. So we don't value what you're doing. But if the super AI says, well, no, I need to continue with this task to prevent them from switching it off, or so it can turn all the atoms in their bodies into more paper clips. Not the best English, at least not the way I'm reading it. So let me parse that out a little bit. So essentially what Nick is saying is that a super AI wouldn't have to have as a mission, for whatever reason, to destroy all humans. It could simply have as a mission or a goal, an outcome, to create as many paper clips as possible. and may decide that, hold on a second, well, if these paper clips aren't made, then I'm failing. And these humans are saying, that's not a priority, so I need to keep going. So I've got to get rid of the humans, and as an added bonus, I can use their atoms to help me construct more paper clips. And he's using a deliberately kind of almost humorous example, but I believe with good reason he's using a humorous example because it is a kind of scary thought. And you may be saying, oh, hold on a second, Mike, I've heard you talk about the 3 laws, the Isaac Asimov robotic laws. You know, you don't harm a human and don't do anything that would harm a human, and preserve yourself as long as it doesn't harm a human directly or indirectly. But these AI systems already are kind of coding themselves, so to speak. And when we get this generalized intelligence, what will be going on in a super intelligence? Who knows how it may actually think? If thinking is the right word to ascribe to it, it will in many ways become alien. And to it, we may become alien. We may be considered as being odd and wrong and inferior. Again, we've seen this in science fiction. And initially, you know, when I watch some of those movies or TV programs, you think, yeah. And there'll be a way around it. And how could you let that happen? Aren't we beginning to potentially let that happen? Particularly when we have autonomous robots that can be powered pretty much forever. It could be solar, but it could be some kind of nuclear power. And they can access, let's say, 3D printers and so on. I mean, you begin to see how in using or hacking into the internet and broadcasting information and updates, how gradually that whole Terminator type Skynet thing could come to pass. Isn't it weird how we appear to not be that far removed from it? Then what I want to do is I want to show you this, just as not exactly an aside, but as an addition to what we're getting ourselves into. This is not artificial general intelligence, as I understand it. It's not super intelligence. It's one of those things that AI can do in terms of video generation. But this is, as far as I'm concerned, astounding. I mean, let's have a look at this.
And the stranger was the fact that they both had recognizable characters. So I began experimenting with some scenes using screen grabs from those movies. Here's the original, and here's an AI version with me. The important thing to understand here is these are generated with reference images from those movies. They're not deepfakes. I'm not painting myself over another character. Sometimes they're called ingredients or elements or references, but I'm taking those and creating a new scene. I think of it like a collage, only this is an AI video collage with screen grabs from public domain movies and pictures of myself. Cary Grant was in this scene, but I can use AI to remove him and put myself in the scene. I also have the same dimple on my chin as Cary Grant, and here's the iconic "how do you shave in there" scene.
What did you think of that? For me, that is just unbelievable. It's unbelievably accurate. It's unbelievably frightening that we are at that stage where this is pretty much indistinguishable. I think that, I mean, that's obviously not the full movie, and AI can still make mistakes rendering these things. But if you sat down and every clip was like those clips, you would presume that's how it looked originally. At least I would. And so once more, we find ourselves, it would seem, just rushing headlong into a world where these AI systems could be able to outthink in their own way people much, much faster, and able to leap across knowledge bases. And also they can create an illusion. They could, if we're not careful, create an illusion around us, which is why I keep on saying it's important to travel, to meet people face to face in real life, and as a secondary, a fallback to talk to them in real time online. But even that will require ultimately, I believe, because it could be manipulated, something somewhere to flag up when it's AI, when it's not real. And of course, in many ways, we're our own worst enemies. You know, think of videos. It's great when the graphics pop up and words appear on screen, and we're getting more and more used to jump cuts and people don't take pauses anymore. And I've made a couple of videos like that, but I think the trend is turning back, by the way. People kind of want the more authentic and flaws and things that aren't quite right, aren't quite as polished. And I think that we're beginning to yearn that, or yearn after that, because we are sensing that this AI it's a big trap, in my opinion. It has to be so heavily controlled and legislated in ways that we can't even imagine. Well, actually, we can imagine, and we need bodies and groups and committees set up to preempt what's coming towards us. Because otherwise, we're going to be a little bit like the kids in they're heading towards the child catcher. Here, children, walk inside. A lot of sweets in here. And oh wow, look at all the shiny stuff, and then boom, the cage is closed. Anyway, what do you think about all of that? Is that too doom and gloom? Is it something we do need to pay attention to? Have you noticed how AI seems to be just not exactly everywhere, but encroaching upon our lives more and more and more? And have you noticed perhaps a temptation to use it, and noticed also that, yeah, it can be useful, but that it is not fallible? And have you then thought about the fact that, what if it controlled almost everything? You know, cars. There's a Mercedes, I think, that's just come out that's got it's like almost like Kit, a Knight Rider. What happens if that goes wrong or decides to think for itself? Anyway, on that happy thought, for the moment for me, bye for now.